Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Brilliantly Resilient. This is our 9,485th show, or maybe it just feels like that.
The scary part is I was saying that in my head too, 9,400. That's creepy.
That's really scary that we're on the same, that we're on the same exaggerated wavelength. What a shock.
Are you going to put that in your gratitude book for today? Because you're on my wavelength. I think
I'm putting that down. That's tops of my list. Anyway, I'm Mary Fran Bontempo with my buddy Kristen Smedley, and we have a really special guest today, Nicole Simonin, who is a woman after my own heart because she talks about fitness for women over 40, which I'm just a little past that. teeny tiny. Past that. But you have also had some, when I heard more about your story, we first met when we did our Brilliantly Resilient event, which we managed to squeeze in right before the world imploded. So, and you attended that. So thank you for that, first of all. But we first met at that. And then when I heard more about your story, I was like, oh my gosh, this woman, and I think Kristen and I have found this to be true very often, that when we get to know people better, almost everybody has a story, some kind of experience that they had that either, I will say, required them, but not everybody rises to that occasion, that allowed them the opportunity to reset and rise and then reveal your brilliance. And you did it. So welcome, Nicole, to the show. And let's hear your story. What happened to you with the whole reset? Where did you experience that in life?
Well, first I want to say thank you so much for having me on. And like you said, I did meet you guys at the Brilliantly Resilient event in Pennsylvania over a month ago, which, as we were saying, that was the last time I know I've been out of the house pretty much. And it was an awesome event. And I'm so thrilled that I went because I wasn't going to go. I know, Mary Fran, we talked about this on my podcast, but I wasn't going to go because it was like over an hour away and somebody had mentioned it to me like 3 days beforehand. So I was really glad to go and see and hear your guys' story because it was really neat. And like I had said to you, it felt like I was in my tribe. Like these were people that I could relate to, so thank you for putting that on. Hopefully the next one will be out whenever we're allowed out of the house.
Oh my gosh. I really cannot wait to do another one just to see other humans. No offense.
Oh, none.
The irony of it is,
my end, seeing your face on my screen.
We'll be putting on another event and still standing right next to each other. So right. This is etched in stone.
Stuck with each other.
Yeah. Anyway, back to you, Nicole. So tell us about your story, which again surprised me.
Yeah, it's interesting because I never really shared it with too many people. I've recently been sharing it, which is interesting because in my mind it wasn't a big deal. And so what happened was I was 17, it was in January, and I was staying at my older brother's house because that morning, it was a Saturday morning, and I was dancing, and my dance teacher, we were all going to go to New York City to get costumes made for our performance. And if you're familiar with the dance world, especially where I grew up, the company I grew up in, you literally, unless your leg was dangling by a thread, you were expected to show up. But I woke up that morning and I could not get out of bed. I had no energy, no strength, no nothing. I remember trying to grab for the phones, like not even a cell phone back then, but a regular phone. I barely could dial. And I told them, look, I can't even get out of bed. And 3 days later, I wound up in the hospital. I couldn't squeeze toothpaste out. It was so painful and so hard to squeeze the toothpaste out. I had to have someone walk me to go to the bathroom. So I was basically in the hospital bed. And I remember my mom saying, she's like, she told me later, she goes, when people would come in, she was like, don't cry in front of her. Don't. Yeah. So they had no idea what was going on. And a couple of weeks later, they put me in Children's Hospital up in Philly. Still had no idea what was going on with me. It was just, I was in such excruciating pain, couldn't walk, couldn't do anything. So they discharged me and they basically told my mom, my dad was in the picture, but ironically enough, he went skiing in Vermont and fell and broke his hip or something, and he was getting a rod in his hip at the hospital up in Vermont while I was in the hospital at Children's Hospital.
Gosh.
Wow.
So I know, I can't imagine what my mom should
your
come on
poor
and tell her
mother.
resilience story.
For
Right?
sure.
Yeah. But so the doctors basically told her, look, be prepared for her she's probably going to be blind, and she's probably not going to be able to walk. And as a 17-year-old, that didn't affect me, because I was like, I didn't think I was going to die. I didn't think anything was really horribly wrong with me, and then 6 months later I had another symptom, and they finally diagnosed what was wrong, and I have a reactive juvenile rheumatoid arthritis.
Oh, wow.
So basically it flares up if I get sick or something like that, and I just had a very overblown reaction to it.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that was the first experience that you had with that. Is that kind of like a lupus sort of a thing, in that it doesn't always surface, but you can have those flare-ups? And was that the first time?
Yes, it was the first time. What I was told, the doctor told me that it's genetic. So I have a family member that also has it. They have chronic pain all the time, and this is where it comes into the fitness aspect. They're overweight, they have issues, I feel like I've been able to kind of keep it at bay because I have been lean and exercised. After I was diagnosed, that was in June. And then 3 months later, I was dancing at Radford University on my scholarship it was like nothing had happened. Yeah, which was interesting.
Oh my gosh.
But I find, looking back, that it wasn't the actual incident itself, but it was the funny moments that I remember. My mom and I still joke about different things. She said she walked in and I was at home and I was looking at a book, and Kristen, you probably can relate to this, but I was running my hand over the book, and she was like, what are you doing? And I was like, well, if I'm going to be blind, then I need to learn how to read Braille. But it was a regular book. It wasn't even a Braille book. So she was like, okay, whatever.
You also had to learn what Braille was in order to figure it out. You didn't
Your mom's
know.
so she's not getting an academic scholarship. So.
Right. But I remember even times in the Children's Hospital, we joke, because I swear I was so nervous about my feet being in the wheelchair, because she would run into the doorways, and I was afraid that she was going to chop my feet off. Going down. So I remember these funny moments, and even I had to have a spinal tap. And the doctor, I remember them saying, well, it's going to feel like a bee sting. And I was like, okay. And then when they stuck the needle in, I'm thinking in my head, how big is this bee? Because there's no bee sting. And then they pulled the needle out, and then I heard them saying, we have to go back in the exact same hole because we didn't get any material. And I was like, how big is this hole that you can find it again and put the needle in?
Oh my God.
Yeah. But looking back, I mean, it's almost comical to me. But so through the years, I have had some issues. I went on to become a professional ballet dancer.
That's amazing that you became a professional dancer with that. And I wonder, do you think, looking back now, that the fact that you were young and you maybe had some of that, that invincibility that most young people have in their mind, I'm going to be fine, it's not going to affect me, which sometimes is a bad thing. But do you think in your instance, it was a good thing for you?
I think 100%. I always feel when we're born, we're very resilient. We learn how to walk, we learn how to talk, we learn how to have temper tantrums to get our own way. And I'm not saying it has to carry over
doing that,
to adulthood.
I'm still doing that.
But I think as somewhere along the way, it gets stuffed down, or a pile of dust gets put on it. We just push it down.
We don't name it. We don't name it. We don't know it for what it is. It's inherent. It's a part of the problem solving process that we just don't name because it's a part of us. And it's only, I think, when we get older and those other parts of our brain kick in that are more about logical problem solving that we forget that piece is there. At least that's the way I experience it.
No, I 100% agree, because I totally agree. It was being young and just not maybe realizing what exactly was going on. like I remember being in Children's Hospital, and the nurses probably loved me there because I was playing with the heart rate monitors. Like I would hold my breath and then I'd wait for it to like flatline, and then it would blip, and then it would blip, and the nurses would come in to check on me. I'm sure they were just like, oh my gosh, get this girl out of here.
Are you a middle child? Are you by chance a middle child?
I am the youngest.
Because my middle child would do something like that.
Oh my gosh, that's too funny.
Yeah.
So you ended up really, is that yours, Kristen, or is that Nicole?
I'm sorry, that is my dog. I think my husband just walked in.
No, see how peaceful I'm sitting here? Because it's not my dog. If it was my dog, my hair would have just fallen out on this side.
My kids had orders to take the dog and
no, my dogs are inside. That if it were my dog, it would mean that my blinds are also on the floor. That's why I would be stressing out. That's why I get to sit here nice and calm. No, my blinds are just fine.
That's right. You had to reinvent your office space. So when you I think probably you internalized this experience, and it just sort of, it's been a foundational piece for you now, because you just went with it. You just figured it out and you just moved forward, and you didn't let it become a permanent part of your psyche, in that it wasn't something that was going to keep you from things.
Yes, I agree. Like I could have really just wallowed in pity and been like, well, I'm not going to walk. I'm not going to be able to see. I had really bad conjunctivitis and they couldn't cure it. Yeah. And I really, it's like I said, that's why haven't really shared, I guess, the story so much, because to me in my mind, it was like, you know, how everybody's always like, yeah, I fell out of a train and broke my arm. Do you know what I mean? Like it's that kind of story. Yeah. But when I tell people, they're like, what?
Well, your issue also, if you had not, first of all, accepted, sometimes we just have to accept that they're like Kristen with blindness and, you know, with the boys, you're not going to change this.
Right.
You know, you can't flip a switch and make this go away. But the fact that you accepted it, recognized it, but didn't let it be the defining factor in your life. And in fact, maybe your life, the trajectory of your life was influenced in a positive way by this, because, you know, what do you do now, and how did that develop?
Yeah, I think too, as a child, I have always been very driven. Like even in ballet, I was very competitive, like very competitive. And if I wanted a role, I was going after that role. Like there was nothing stopping me. And I think that might have played a little bit into the fact that like, I still wanted to dance. I wanted to, you know, dance professionally, and no one was going to tell me that I wasn't going to be able to walk.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So did the symptoms all just subside, or was it something that you did to literally like take one step at a time to come back?
When I was in Children's Hospital, they decided to give me a very large dose of steroids. And all of a sudden, I was like up and moving and doing things. And I think they were like, well, if we can't cure her, we can at least keep her subdued or give her whatever she needs. I remember going home and I had to take eye drops all the time, which was funny because they dilated my eyes so much that I couldn't see in front of me, but I had to go back to school, because if I had missed another day of school, I would have had to repeat senior year.
Oh, wow.
Geez.
Yeah.
Oh my.
But I couldn't see in front of me, but I could see the person's desk in front of me, their book. I could read it clear as day. It's like,
oh my gosh.
I couldn't take notes or anything like that. But so basically they had me on medicine just to kind of maintain my symptoms until they figured out what was wrong.
And how long did that last, that period, before they figured out what it was?
It was like from January until probably June.
Jeez.
That it was, and it wasn't really that, I mean, when you look at it, that wasn't really that much big of a time frame, like 6 months.
No, but going from being completely functional and then the next day not.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an amazing thing to think about, how and I think we talk ourselves out of it as we get older, because you talk about that inherent resilience, how you just thought, all right, well, what can I do? Okay, I'll read the kid's book in front of me. If I can't see my book, I'll read that one. You know, but you figured out how to make a situation work with absolutely no frame of reference, on how to deal with that. And that's what we talk about when we talk about these train wrecks and sucker punches. They just come out of the blue. You know, Kristen, as she says, knew no one who was blind. I didn't know any heroin addicts.
It wasn't the company that you keep?
It was. I'm happy to say that for the most part, until I had one living with me, I didn't know any. But we end up, it's amazing to me how we end up figuring it out when we are faced with something that is completely contrary to anything that we know. And we can still figure out a way based on the things that we may have done in the past, based on some skill sets that we continue to build on that help us to find that through way to get to the next place.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah. So now let's talk about your career and what that may have directly or indirectly, how your experience may have impacted that. Tell us what you do now. Tell me how I can look like you. And then
well,
we don't have enough time for that, I know.
No. So I when my kids were born, I actually worked as a physical therapist assistant after my dance career.
Okay.
And I got married and had my son, and I was like, I'm so coming back to work, because at the time I was running a gym, I was a trainer, and I was also doing PTA work, the physical therapist assistant. And I was like, I'm definitely coming back. And then I had my son, and I'm like, I'm definitely not coming back. Sorry.
The best laid plans until you have the kid, and then it's like, nope.
Yeah, I just couldn't leave him at home, because I was like, and I get it if people, and this is not a judgment call, like, I get it, some people need other people, they need to go back to work and they need other people to raise their kids, but I was like, I'm having these kids, I want to raise them, I want them to, So I started Shape It Up Fitness, and ironically, I started off as an online trainer, and the technology was horrible back then. It was in 2006, and it took so much time to do everything. And then I transitioned into Mommy and Me boot camps, and now I'm back to doing online training and in-person training. No in-person training right now due to the lovely coronavirus, but so it was interesting when I look back on my careers and the things that have happened in my life. I'm like, yeah, this is where I'm supposed to be. This is the steps. I can see the steps that led me to having my own business and helping women over 40. I am over 40. I am going to be 47 in the summer. And when I turned 40, I was like, there's some shifts going on here.
Wait, there are better ones coming. Let me just tell you. There are other numbers that are going to shake your roots even more than that one.
I found too that there wasn't a lot of information out on the internet for women over 40. And I don't know if it's because of the generation that we're in, like some of the women over 40, they're not online. They're not posting, their success stories and stuff like that. So I kind of tweaked my business, and I was like, I am just going to focus on women over 40. And also I was talking to a lot of people who were friends of mine, and they were like, well, I might as well just toss the towel in. I'm over 40, nothing's going to get any better than this. And I'm like, that is such a lie. Like, you can lose weight. I have proof of many clients who are in their 50s and 60s and have lost, 40 pounds. I have a client who lost 90 pounds. So like, wow. Yeah, it's amazing. One of the things that I work on is mindset.
I was just going to ask you about that.
Like, it's got to have a lot to do with mindset.
Yeah. And you know what? Because I come from a dance background, perfection is expected at that level, and nothing else is, worth trying for unless you're going for perfection. And taking that into a normal life and like food and exercise, I never realized how like messed up I was from ballet. And it's interesting because I started diving into like self-help and mindset, and I'm not too much into the woohoo stuff, but like
good.
Yeah.
Mary Fran loves a good woohoo.
I don't have time for that. I gotta get right to it.
Yeah. One of my favorite books, I don't know if I can say it on live, but it's called, it's by Jen Sincero. It's You Are a Bad.
Oh yeah.
We love her.
Oh yeah. We love
that book.
She was in our town a couple, 2 years ago now?
Really?
Yeah, and
Oh.
we saw her in Newtown. She was on the,
Oh,
at the
wow.
theater. Yeah, it was great.
Oh, you have to let me know when she comes back.
We will.
But her book literally like shifted everything in my mind because it was amazing. And so I dove deeper into the psychology aspect of it. And now I used it on myself and it worked really well. And then I was like, okay, so I'm going to start applying this to my clients. And honestly, it's the missing link. It's the missing piece, I think, for, you know, we are always told to move more and eat less, but why don't we do it? So that's where I come in and really work on the mindset. I do training sessions. Like I have an app where I design workouts for people and they can access it through my app. And we do phone consults where we talk about mindset each week. And I have a whole program laid out, Master Your Mind to Change Your Body. Basically, we walk people through all the steps. And you can, like in a year's time, you're going to be amazed at how much your mindset will shift. And it's not just even with weight loss, but it trickles into everything else in your life, which I think is also amazing. And I feel like people don't realize how much they're missing with the mindset part.
So let me ask you this for mindset, because that's what I was just thinking. There's got to be a tie-in, a parallel to everything that's happening now, people's businesses and the kids are home and all of this stuff. And it's what we have found in resilience. The first step is resetting. That's why we have the reset. Your mindset, you know, that first thing and how you're looking at it, perception and all. What do you have, like, what's one key thing that you've noticed that you're working with people mindset in terms of fitness and weight loss that also transfers over to what's happening?
I feel like people don't realize they have a choice. And like you were saying with sucker punches, and coronavirus for sure has been a sucker punch to everyone that is affected, but we get to choose whether you're getting knocked out, whether you're getting stunned, or whether you get up again, you know, so no matter what punches are coming at you.
I love that. I'm writing this down.
Are you going to quote me?
I am.
I quoted you last time. But I feel like it also relates to health and fitness. You know, you get to choose what you want to eat. You get to choose if you want to work out. You get to choose if you want to take care of yourself. And there is no judgment whether you do or you don't. You know, you get to live your life how you want to live it. And I feel like, especially because everybody's pantries are stocked right now and your fridges are stocked, you know, there needs to be some social distancing between your refrigerators.
6 feet away from that handle. Get away from that fridge.
Put your jeans back on. Get out of the yoga pants. That's what I did. That's
Smart move. Yeah,
So,
but people, you always have a choice.
And that's huge, because I think it goes back to exactly what you said. Once you recognize that in one specific area of your life, that idea of, I have a choice of how I can react to this. I might not have a choice about changing the circumstances,
Right.
but I do have a choice about how I react to those circumstances. And that can make all the difference in a lousy situation.
I think it kind of almost feels like you have power back. Because when you let circumstances rule your life, you're giving your power to whatever's going on around you, rather than saying, I get to decide what I want to do, what I want to think, and go from there.
So that whole concept of you have a choice and whether you want to react or not changed my life in terms of dealing with toxicity in a person. And I thought, why do I keep letting this person ruin my day? Why am I? And then I'm like, it's like the universe kept sending me these messages of that's going to happen. Like this person, you've it's not
like eczema.
They're not falling off a cliff anytime
like eczema.
That's what she said.
Flare up.
That person's like eczema. I'm like, okay, well, if they're not falling off a cliff any day soon, I guess I got to learn to deal with this. But yes, and it's like it's a power issue. That's what it was for me, that I couldn't stand that my power was gone. And then I'm like, what does it matter with you? Take the power.
We don't realize that we actually give it away.
Mm-hmm.
When we allow other people and those circumstances to define our future behaviors, we make the choice to give the power away. So I kind of tweaked what you said, and I'm going to attribute this to you. Don't give your power to your circumstances.
Yeah.
I like that. So
Yeah,
I also love what you said about, and I think that this is what we're saying. We'll use this and maybe we'll trademark your name on it. But in terms of the sucker punches, you said, are you knocked out, stunned, or getting back up? And I think so many people get overwhelmed because you feel like you're either knocked out or you have to get back up. And we say to pause.
You can be stunned.
About it. Yes, be stunned. Sit there stunned. Like what? Remember the old cartoons where they're like, I. It's like that's what that moment is. And that's okay. That's where you find that strength and what are you going to do to take the power and make the next right step as opposed to just reacting right away.
Yeah.
Well, I think we don't want to be uncomfortable. And I find that I've learned over the past, especially the past 2 years, like being uncomfortable is where it's at. And if you're not uncomfortable, like in a situation where you're progressing forward, like you were saying about being stunned, people don't want to be in that moment because it's uncomfortable for them. And I feel like it's okay, like exactly what you're saying. It's okay to be there because you have
to acknowledge it. You can't possibly address it until you look it square in the face and acknowledge it and say, okay, all right, wow, what is this?
Yeah.
I was just looking through my notes of who just said that. It was Henry last night. Said you should look for hardship.
That's right.
You're right. That's where it's at. And I was like, no, I like to go in the other direction.
That's with weight loss. That's with weight loss and everything too. Everybody's so comfortable. Like, who doesn't want to sit on the couch and eat Cheetos and binge on Netflix, whatever. But it depends on what your goals are. Me personally, I feel like I want to level up as much as possible in this world. And sitting on the couch, not to say that I don't sit on the couch, but I earn my sit time. I don't just sit to sit. And I like that.
Earn your sit time.
Yeah.
I like that.
So I think this. So they say when you run and all, and then it's the endorphins and you feel so good at the end. Well, I always say to my kids, I'm like, yeah, I really don't think it's endorphins. I think it's just because it's over. I'm so excited. But I figured out also, I'm just not a runner for runner's sake, even though I do it to fit into my jeans and to feel better. But when I started going and I was always a soccer player. So I've started back to kicking a soccer ball around a couple times a week to get back. I was trying to get back to when was I happiest in my life and what was happening to channel that again. And that's what it was, because that's how I grew up, being completely happy. Of course, I look a little ridiculous at 48 and a half years old, and I'm running around chasing a soccer ball, and I don't care because it is so much fun.
Who cares? Who cares? It doesn't matter.
People always say that all the time, like, I'm uncomfortable with people watching me doing whatever. And I'm like, most of the time we're all very internalized, meaning, so like, if I were to see you kicking the soccer ball, I wouldn't be going, oh my gosh, she's a crazy lady. I'd be like, wow, that is so awesome. I wish I could do that type thing. And I think a lot of women don't realize that. And that was one of the things, like, stop judging yourself. When you go and do these exercises and stuff, most of the time women are thinking about themselves in a negative way rather than like, what this person is really thinking. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we tend to project what we think we look like to somebody else onto what they're thinking, and we have no idea.
And it might not be true at all.
Exactly. Yeah. I remember when we did the event and we were talking about this kind of thing, like about, just try things. And I remember saying to the group, are you afraid you're going to look stupid? Because guess what? You already have. Yeah. That ship has sailed. At some point in your life, you've looked stupid and you survived it. Right. So, keep that in your mind. This is not the first time you're going to look stupid. It's already happened and you're still here. So, put the effort in because the rewards are great.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Which circles back to get out of your comfort zone.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well, this has been a really delightful conversation. So
a lot of brilliance bits out of this one.
Yeah, I've got, like I said, I'm taking all these notes, and we're going to be doing all sorts of stuff with quotes. So you're definitely going to be in there, Nicole.
Awesome.
We got you in the fold. You're in the tribe now.
Yay!
So tell everybody.
I want a T-shirt and a hat.
Yeah,
I'm on it.
You can have my hat because I won't be wearing it. I won't be wearing my hat. So tell everybody where they can find you so that they can get fit and listen to your brilliance.
You can find me at shapeitupfitness.com. I am offering a free webinar coming up this week. It is how to crush your cravings, which I feel fits in perfectly with the corona and the social distancing of your refrigerator.
For sure. And you have a podcast too. Tell everybody about your podcast.
I do. I just started it in January, another getting out of my comfort zone. And it is Shape It Up Over 40 podcast. You can find it on iTunes or Apple Podcasts, whatever they're calling it now.
Whatever.
Yeah. Podbean. Yeah. So I'm there. And LinkedIn. I'm also on LinkedIn.
Thank you again for joining us. This has been a really fun conversation. And that's interesting to me because I do not like to exercise. I do it, but it was the things that you talked about, how you can change your mindset and all that are really relevant. Everybody needs to be conscious of that, especially during this time of this coronavirus. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
It was a pleasure. And everybody, will see you tomorrow. Me and my buddy, Kristen Smedley, on another episode of Brilliantly Resilient Live.
See ya.